Yo, what's up guys, AFC Dino here and welcome to a new video. Today is finally the day in which I am going to give you guys the best money making method guide in PokeMMO for 2024. This is, of course, in my opinion. There might be better money making methods out there, but I've been able to do this consistently for about 2 weeks now. And the money gain is insane. Like I've obviously spent a lot of money trying to perfect the strategy and the team, but it feels really solid now. And yeah, like I said, I've been able to do it consistently. I also recorded one of the runs of doing this, and in that recording we made about 400k profit. That's including all the items we used to be able to do this strategy. So if that really sounds interesting, guys, keep listening. And yeah, it might be strange seeing a guide like this on my channel, because I'm mainly known as the PvP guy, but we PvP players also need to be able to afford our PvP lifestyle, and this is where we need those resources from. So yeah, this will typically cost you about 1 to 1.5 hours a day, but yeah, the results are definitely worth it. And like I said, you can do it consistently. Does require some PvP knowledge though. But yeah, like I said, guys, I really like this method, and yeah, I've been able to accumulate a lot of money in the recent days. But yeah, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the following things. First, we're going to talk about the money making method. Then I'm going to give you some pre-knowledge on the Elite Four, because we are mainly battling the Elite Four right here, but we're doing it efficiently without using a lot of resources. And then I'm going to talk about the general strategy on how we are going to approach the Elite Four, just the general strategy. And I am going to explain the team, so I'm going to show you guys all the stats, the moves, and explain why I chose to go this route. And after that, we will go into a detailed strategy with the team on how we approach every battle, like a detailed strategy on how we are going to approach each turn. And lastly, I'm going to give you guys recommendations on in which order you could do this routine. Yeah, like I said, guys, if that sounds interesting, then let's go right into it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as well. And let's go into the first part. Before we start, by the way, there's one thing I want to emphasize. If there's one thing you need, it's definitely going to be custom strings. Custom strings are going to reduce the dialogue time so much. Just check this out, guys. For instance, look at how fast this is. Like skipping the dialogue and healing. You need these custom strings as well to set a good timing when you do this routine. So I will leave a link to how to download that in the description, with the forum post where you can find the download link as well. And yeah, guys, let's continue right back to the video. Okay, guys, in this method we focus on rebattling the Elite Four and Champion from 3 different regions. With the remaining time, we battle NPC Morimoto and as many gym leaders as possible before the timer runs out. For this routine, we'll use the Amulet coin. This one typically costs between 15 to 20k. Alternatively, you could use the Richest Charm. This one can be more profitable if you're able to defeat at least 3 extra gym leaders. So basically 3 regions, Morimoto, and 3 gym leaders. Starting from there, the Richest Charm is more profitable. I believe at that point you make 3k more Pokeyen, and the difference gets bigger the more gym leaders you defeat at that point. But for beginners, I suggest starting with the Amulet coin, as it requires a smaller investment. It's cheaper to buy, and you also need to get used to using the team and the strategy. But like I said, the profit margin starts to increase after 3 gym leaders, guys. And from that point, every gym leader or trainer you defeat gives you more money on the richest charm. But that's basically the general money making method. Now let's go into some pre-knowledge on the Elite Four, because we'll mainly be battling these guys. Okay guys, before diving into the strategy, here are some essential points you need to know about the Elite Four. The Elite Four and the Champion prioritize super effective moves. If they have a super effective move against you, they will use it as long as you're healthy. If you are low HP though, they might switch to one of their stab moves instead. For example, if you have a Chansey in versus a Rapier, and Rapier use Hammer Arm on the first turn, now you're at 40%, they might switch to Earthquake instead of Hammer Arming again, so be careful when switching out in those cases. However, when you're full HP or healthy, they will typically go for their super effective move. And they will also never go for a weak move against you. So for example, if you have Metagross in versus Gallade, Gallade will never use Ice Punch against your Metagross. Unless Ice Punch is his only attacking move, then he probably will. But if he has another move that's neutral or super effective, he will go for that move. That's basically the first thing. The second thing you gotta know is that they use old PvP sets. With old, I mean they use PvP sets from way back before all the updates. Because, for example, Scizor is still using close combat, is still using superpower instead of close combat. And the important thing you gotta note is that they are using PvP sets. So you're not gonna see random moves like Hyper Beam or Aurora Beam. So it does take a bit of PvP knowledge, and if you have a bit of PvP knowledge, then you might figure out that Gallade might have Ice Punch, for example, or this Pokemon might have a certain move. And the Pokemon will also have their hidden ability often. I think you gotta keep in mind, even if the hidden ability is not available yet for us in PvP, the Elite Four members might have those hidden abilities. For example, Slowbro with Regenerator is a thing that I believe Lorelei has. But that's something you gotta keep in mind as well. And the third one is against Chansey. They typically switch out it. Like if you have a defensive Pokemon in and their offensive Pokemon cannot beat it. For example, if you have a Chansey versus a special attacker, they will usually switch out into a Pokemon that has a super effective move against you. So if they switch out to Machamp, then you know the fighting move is gonna come. If they switch out to Scizor, you know the superpower is most likely gonna come. But sometimes they don't have a super effective move. But if they have, they will use it at that turn. And if they don't, then they won't. Then they use something else. So really important to know. And the last thing is, if the Elite Four member has a counter to your sweeper, let's say you switch in your Gengar to a Gallade or to a Lucario and you click Encore. If they have a counter, they're gonna switch into it. So maybe they have an Umbreon. If that scenario happens again later in the same battle, they're gonna make that same switch. So if they switch out once when you try to set up after you use Encore, then you gotta go for a different setup plan. So you gotta try to set up with something else. This is really important to note, because otherwise you're gonna have really long battles. So strategy is really important, but we're gonna go into that in a bit. And lastly, guys, I left the spreadsheet linked in the description, and there you can find all the detailed information on the teams the Elite Four and the Champions are using. So you're basically gonna see the movesets. They have many different teams, but the teams are usually the same. So if the team consists of the same members, then you're gonna know that they're having these moves. But it's good to look for moves like Ice Punch. Things you gotta be careful of, looking for those kind of moves. And knowing which Pokemon your opponent also has, because you're trying to set up, but you want to be efficient with your time. Like if you go to +6, it might be overkill, and you might lose a bit of time on it. So knowing if a trainer has something like a Tyranitar can be really good to know, because if he has a Tyranitar, then you know you gotta go to +6, for example. But yeah, that's basically the pre-knowledge part. So now let's go into the general strategy of this guide. Okay guys, now the general strategy. The strategy is pretty straightforward. Set up Stealth Rock and then trap the opponent with a move one of our Pokemon is immune to, allowing us to set up. This is achieved using Encore from Gengar or Trick from Metagross with a Choice Scarf. And if these tactics fail, Gliscor can tank and set up Swords Dance against physical attackers that are lacking Ice Punch or Ice Fang. After setting up twice, we used the battle item X Speed to double our speed, and then set up further or start sweeping. And we'll do this for every battle. The reason we use it after 2 setups is because if you set up once, and use X speed, the opponent might switch out and you might not have enough damage at that point. So if you set up 2 times, then they're most likely going to stay in till they run out of PP. So in that sense, I typically set up 2 times and then use my X speed. And from there, we can decide whether we want to set up more or we want to start sweeping. And Chansey typically works together with Gengar and Gliscor due to their fighting resistance and immunities. And similarly, Metagross pairs up really well with Chandelure because Chandelure has a fire immunity, and with the air balloon it also has a ground immunity, allowing him to set up on things that could do super effective damage against Metagross, because Metagross's only weaknesses are ground moves and fire moves, which Chandelure is immune to. And we have a Poliwrath in the back as well as a water immunity. We don't use him much, but it's good to have him there. And after each battle, guys, heal the Pokemon to full HP using normal potions. The reason we use normal potions is because we don't want to overheal our Pokemon. We want to save as much money as possible on healing. And definitely stock up on these as well. You get medicines like for status like Paralyze Heal, Awakening, Antidote, all those kind of things. And definitely stock up on a few revives as well. We're not planning to use any revives, but if anything goes wrong, we have that safety net. But generally, we don't need to use any revives with this strategy. But this is basically the general strategy for each battle. Oh guys, one more thing. When you are in a champion battle, it doesn't matter if one of your Pokemon dies, because you don't have to use a revive. After the battle, you can go to the Pokemon Center and heal your Pokemon for the next region. So you can play a bit more recklessly or more aggressively trying to set up. And yeah, it's not gonna cost you any money if one of your Pokemon dies. So something I wanted to point out as well. Let's go further. Okay guys, now the team explanation part. So I'm going to go over each member of the team and yeah, what their functions are and why I chose them. The first one is going to be Chansey, and Chansey, all the games we're gonna lead with Chansey. Doesn't matter which opponent it is, we're gonna lead with Chansey. We're using a relaxed nature. You can use a bold nature too, but it has to be a defensive nature. Because for the EVs, we're going with max HP and max defense, and I'm putting the rest into special defense. Because we use the move Stealth Rock. Because this strategy, we prioritize getting up Stealth Rock before we try to sweep. So when we send out Chansey, we're gonna look at our opponent. Is he a fighting type with a strong fighting move like Close Combat, Superpower, Hammer Arm, etc.? If it is not a fighting type, we're gonna stay in and use Stealth Rock. Doesn't really matter if we take damage, we can heal this later. Our next move is Soft Boil. Sometimes you can just heal on your opponent so that you don't have to use a potion. And I'm using Thunder Wave here because Chansey doesn't really need to attack, so I don't have any attacking moves, because that's actually wasting time if we attack with Chansey. Instead, using Thunder Wave, because Cynthia, for example, sometimes leads off with Superior, and if Superior uses Leaf Storm, it can actually sweep our team. But if we Thunder Wave Superior, then Chandelure is gonna be faster, and then we can knock him out with Flamethrower. That's why I have it. And Teleport is just in case our opponent has a special attacker in and doesn't want to switch out against us. Spam something like Thunderbolt or whatever, Psychic maybe, and we don't want to take damage with the other guys, we can use Teleport for a safe switch. But yeah, the idea, we lead with Chansey, get up rocks, and otherwise we want to... If they lead with a special attacker, they usually switch to their fighting type, which is going to allow our next Pokemon to do something. If we get up rocks, it is Gengar. Gengar just with a timid nature and really standard EVs, max speed, max special attack. And I'm using the moves Encore, Shadow Ball, Hidden Power Fighting, and Nasty Block. The reason we have Encore is because a lot of the fighting types will use, if a Pokemon has a fighting move, they will use a fighting move against Chansey. So when they do that, we can switch in Gengar, take no damage, and then use Encore. Now they're locked into Encore, and then we can use Nasty Blood. If they stay in against us, then Gengar can set up one more Nasty Blood, then use a next speed, and then start sweeping. And we're using Hidden Power Fighting because Focus Blast can miss. We want to be consistent, and we can generally set up to +6 to still get powerful Hidden Power Fightings, but most of the times we click Shadow Ball anyway. And for a safety net, we use a Focus Sash, because sometimes you do see something, use Shadow Sneak, for example. Whenever you're full HP, your opponent, the NPCs, will rarely go for a priority move. So the Focus Sash is there just for safety net. Because we don't really need an item, we don't really want to have Black Sludge, because Black Sludge makes the turn last longer, because now you have to wait every turn to get healed. Yeah, Air Balloon could be an option, but doesn't really matter. Chandelure already has Air Balloon. Like Focus Sash, just as a safety net. And sometimes things do go wrong, and then you cannot sweep anymore. Then having that Focus Sash just to kill something is definitely helpful too. That's why we have the Focus Sash on Gengar. And yeah, sometimes they do switch out. Like I said, if you Encore a Lucario and they switch into Umbreon, then you cannot do anything because Hidden Power Fire is not gonna kill. Then you have to try for a different way to sweep. And this is why I have Gliscor on the team. I'm using Gliscor with an Impish nature. This is pure for PvE, guys. And the EV spread, guys, we're going with 244 HP. This gives us the maximum amount of healing you can get from a Poison Eel. I'm using 72 speed because this outspeeds Jolly Tyranitar with Ice Punch or whatever. And I actually have 40 points into attack. And this is important because Gliscor is mainly a defensive Pokemon. But if we go to +6, with those 40 points, we can KO Gastrodon from full HP, max defense. Same goes for Jellicent after Stealth Work, Milotic. Because some defensive Pokemon you might otherwise not kill. You have to use Earthquake against him though. And we put the rest into defense, so we can set up on stuff like Sizzle or Absol, those kind of Pokemon. Because they typically don't switch out against us, which is really nice. You can set up on Hexorus, Gliscor, those kind of mons. Just be careful of Pokemon with Ice Punch or Ice Fang. That's typically when Gengar cannot sweep, we can use Gliscor instead. And see if they switch out against Gliscor. But yeah, for the moves, we have Swords Dance, Facade, Earthquake, which is normal, but I actually have Crunch on this instead of Roost. You might want Roost on this, but the reason I have Crunch here is because some of the trainers have Miss Magius, which has Levitate and is a Ghost type, so you cannot touch it. So in that case, we can use Crunch. And some trainers have Drift Blame, which is a flying Ghost type, which you can also not touch. So that's why I have Crunch on him, just so I can hit that. Because typically, if you face a physical attacker, Gliscor can easily set up, and with the Poison Heal, it's gonna stay healthy, and then start setting up. And the moment you start killing things with Gliscor, you're gonna get a lot of HP back, because you don't lose any HP if you kill your opponent. So as well with Gliscor, Swords Dance 2 times, then use X speed, and then use Swords Dance again, and then try to start sweeping. Next up we have Metagross, and Metagross with an impish nature, and the EVs, I have 188 speed. This allows me to outspeed Garchomp, because we're using a Choice Scarf, so we're faster than Garchomp, meaning that we can use Stealth Rock or Trick first. I put the rest into HP, because HP is important since Metagross might also need to take fire moves, and a lot of the fire moves are stuff like Flamethrower or Fire Blast, allowing us to live those kind of moves. And I put the rest into defense, so it has an easier time living Earthquakes. But if we don't have Stealth Rock up with, then we use Metagross Stealth Rock. But if Stealth Rock is up, we use Trick to lock our opponent into something. And typically, if they go for a super effective move against Metagross and we use Trick, either Earthquake or Flamethrower, we can go into Chandelure. And the moveset on the Metagross is Stealth Rock. Because we get Stealth Rock, we have Trick. But we also have Protect, because after we Trick, let's say we use Trick and our opponent switches out. We don't know what move they click right. Then we can use Protect to see what move they use, and then we can switch into an immunity. And I have Reflect, because I generally don't need to attack with Metagross. I just use Reflect, but I never really use his fourth move, but I just have it there. Maybe you guys can come up with something better. But yeah, Chandelure is the next thing, and like I already explained earlier, with the Air Balloon, Chandelure is immune to everything Metagross is weak to. So ground types and fire type moves. And a lot of times, those kind of Pokemon don't switch out against Chandelure, because they are typically not weak for Chandelure. So you're just gonna spam Earthquake or Flamethrower against you, and then you can start setting up Calm Mind. And for Chandelure as well, you Calm Mind twice, and then you use the X speed. And from there you can decide whether you want to Calm Mind more. In some instances you want to get to +3 or +4 in case your opponent has an Umbreon, for example. So I generally go to +4 with Chandelure. I generally go to +6 with Gengar, unless I cannot Anchor anymore, because when my opponent runs out of PP, then I just go to +4. Or if a Pokemon could have a potential Focus Sash, then I go to +4 and then attack. But in Gliscor generally to +6, and yeah, like I said, Chandelure generally to +4. Lastly, we have Poliwrath, and like I said, I do rarely use him, but sometimes you're gonna face something like a Lapras, for example, and Lapras is not gonna have like Earthquake or something that you want to lock him into. But if you can lock him into a water move, then Poliwrath can set up. Poliwrath can even set up if Lapras isn't locked in, because Lapras doesn't run Thunder. But those kind of matchups, probably. Same with Gastrodon, Quagsire, for example. Don't do it against Empoleon, because Empoleon is actually offensive with Drill Peck. But yeah, the idea with Poliwrath is basically the same. We have an Adamant nature. We use max attack, and I actually have this amount, so you can use max speed as well. I think I have 30 defense to live stuff like Psyshock better. But you can run max attack and max speed. That's fine too. But yeah, I use Belly Drum, Ice Punch, Drain Punch, and Earthquake. No Waterfall. The reason I want Earthquake is because sometimes you want to use a non-contact move, because you don't want to get staticked or poisoned by touching your opponent, or using something like an Earthquake. You don't want to take Rocky Helmet sometimes, so avoiding the Rocky Helmet. But Drain Punch obviously gonna heal Poliwrath to full HP, and Ice Punch just for coverage against flying, dragon types, etc. And ground types, of course. And we use the Citrus Berry instead of Leftovers. The reason we use Citrus Berry is when we Belly Drum, we must survive the following attack, so we can use X speed. So having as much as HP there as possible is really important. And yeah, that is basically the team. And like I said, you're gonna look for sweeping opportunities. And if something doesn't work because your opponent switches out, you gotta go for a different strategy because they're gonna keep making that same switch. Yeah, this is basically the team. Now let's go into a more detailed strategy. Okay guys, the detailed strategy. Before we go into this though, there's something important I want to note. Because in this routine, we're only doing 3 regions instead of 4 regions of Elite Four battles. And this is going to relieve so much pressure on you, because if you are planning to do 4 regions and you're not able to finish the last region, you're not getting the bonus money. So you're gonna be stressed out all the time about finishing it before the timer runs out. While doing it this way, you're gonna be relaxed because you're gonna have time. You're always gonna have time to spare. And if you miss out on one gym leader, it's not a big deal. But if you miss out on the last region, it's a huge deal. And this is why we can also play a bit more patiently. So we can play a bit more cost efficient. Because you've probably noticed in the guide that I keep telling you guys to switch out Chansey against physical fighting types. And it's not because Chansey would die to it. Chansey can definitely live a close combat from a Lucario. But let's take a look at Chansey's stats, guys. Chansey has 704 HP. Let's say we take a close combat from Lucario. We're gonna be at 100 HP. Remember, after each battle, we have to heal our Pokemon to consistently win these battles. And Chansey definitely needs to be healed because it's gonna be our Stealth Rocker. So we're leading off with it every time. So after each battle, we're gonna make sure Chansey is at full. However, if we take that close combat and we're at 100 HP, now we have to heal 600 HP. Remember, guys, a potion heals 20 HP. If you have to heal 600 HP, that is going to cost you a lot of potions. That's like 30 potions. So this is why we want to be efficient with our HP, with our items, and this is why I tend to tell people to switch out. And that's basically the thing I wanted to note. So let's go into the strategy. First, we're gonna prioritize setting up Stealth Rock, so we always lead with Chansey, like I said. But if 2 things can happen, your opponent leads off with a physical fighting type, or they don't lead off with a physical fighting type. If they lead off with a physical fighting type, like Lucario or Gallade, then we switch into our immunity or our fighting resist. So either switch into Gengar or into Gliscor. And what we want to do next, I typically like to switch into Gliscor if the Pokemon you're facing could potentially have Ice Punch. Because they're never gonna predict or switch. Like the NPC is never predicting. So they're gonna click Close Combat or Sacred Sword or Hammer Arm, Superpower, whatever fighting move. Gliscor is gonna resist it. And then we switch into Metagross. If they have a nice type attack, they're gonna use it against Gliscor. If they don't, then you know it for next time. Because if they don't have a nice type move, then you know Gliscor can set up on that opponent. But now we switch into Metagross. And here's the thing what we did, guys. First off, we didn't take any damage with Chansey. We took minimal damage with Gliscor or with Metagross. And now Metagross doesn't have to tank that first close combat. Because it's gonna come in on a super effective move against Gliscor or against Gengar. Against Gliscor, Ice Punch is resisted, Crunch is neutral, which means Metagross comes in really healthy. We can click Stealth Rock, and yeah, maybe your opponent is going to click Close Combat again. Now we can switch into Gengar and try setting up, or switch into Gliscor and try setting up. But sometimes they switch into their special attacker. After you click Stealth Rock, now you switch back into Chansey, and now Chansey is in against the special attacker, so the NPC is going to switch out again into their fighting type like Lucario, Machamp, Gallade, and go for the fighting type move, and this is where we are going to try the strategy. We're gonna switch out into Gengar, use Encore on the close combat, and then try to set up. And remember guys, try to set up twice first. So nasty plot twice, because after the first nasty plot, your opponent might switch out. So then you'll only be at +2 if you use your X speed. Just set up twice and then use your X speed. But that's the situation if they lead up with a fighting type. However, if they're leading with a non-fighting physical attacker, then Chansey can usually tank their attack and stay in and just go for Stealth Rock. For example, if you face a Metagross, it could have Hammer Arm, but Metagross is not a fighting type, so it's going to do a bit less damage than a fighting type would do. So we can definitely take that attack because we are prioritizing Stealth Rock, but we also prioritize timing and obviously HP. So in that sense, click Stealth Rock and then switch out into whatever. Keep in mind though, if he does use Hammer Arm against you, you might not want to switch in Gengar because he could go for Meteor Mash, Sand Headbutt, or Earthquake. Then it's generally better to go for the Gliscor play, and then switch into Metagross just to see if he has Ice Punch. Because remember, they always use their super effective move if they have it in those kind of situations. And yeah, that's that strategy. And otherwise, your opponent will switch out into their fighting type, but you will get up rocks and you don't take any damage. Like, that's the ideal situation. If your opponent leads off with a special attacker, you get in chance, you get up rocks, they switch to the fighting type, and then you can bring in Gengar to Encore them, set up, or Gliscor just to set up on them and tank their hits. However, if Encore doesn't work and if Gliscor cannot set up, we can resort to the next thing. So you're still gonna bring in Gengar or Gliscor on a fighting type move, but then we switch into Metagross again. But now we use Trick because we already got up rocks with Chansey, and now that fighting type is going to be locked into something unless he switches out. Then the next thing is gonna be Scarf, and we're gonna protect on that and try to set up on that. Usually when they switch out against Metagross, it's gonna be because they have a fire move or a ground move, and then we can still set up with Chandelure. So that's the general way of it. And if for some reason the special attacker stays in against Chansey, that generally means that they don't have a fighting type move somewhere on their team. And that's in those scenarios, I would just Thunder Wave the target and then Soft Boil up and teleport into something that can beat him. But yeah, that's the general idea of the strategy. Okay, lastly, I have some recommendations on where to go or where to start in this routine. Because honestly, it doesn't really matter which region you start, because difficulty-wise, they are pretty much all equal. But I usually start in the Unova region because that one usually takes the longest to finish, because you have to walk around and there are some animations, etc. So typically I start there, and don't forget to activate your Amulet coin or your Richest Charm just before you meet the champion, so that bonus will get added as well. And for the other two regions, it really doesn't matter. What I recommend is just doing different variations each day and see which ones you like and kind of stick to that. And then we're just going back to the Unova region, go to Morimoto, use the same Elite Four rebattle team, because you just lead up with Chansey and you can teleport into something. It can be then if they switch into their fighting type, which Morimoto often does as well. You switch into Gengar, click Encore, and start sweeping from there. And for the gym leaders, usually the ones that are easily accessible, since you are in the Unova region when you battle Morimoto, you might as well go to the first gym. Make sure to use multi-select. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. I can say I have my Elite Four rebattle party here. If I go to my PC and I have my gym rebattle team, you can select them all by right-clicking here and just dragging your mouse all over here, and then you just drag your mouse to the first spot, and now you have your whole party here, and you can go straight to the gym. So use multi-select there, and typically what I'll do then is battle the first gym, There are 3 gym leaders. I usually do them all. If you cannot deal with flash fire, then only do 2 of them. And then you go to the second gym, which should be really easy if you use the historical team. And then you can go to the third gym. And from there you can choose to battle Iris. And you could technically do the fourth gym as well if you have some time left. But sometimes that one has 9 tails. And if you still have some time left, guys, you can go to Underla Town. Obviously, if Cynthia is available, you battle Morimoto and Cynthia first. But now she's only available in spring. But if, like I said, if you have some time left, then battling these 2 trainers, these 2 old people, really good. They give 8k each. So that's about 16k if you beat them both. Pretty fast battles as well. Like, they're not high level at all. And that should give you a lot of money from one run, guys. And obviously, if you want to do more runs that day, you can still rebattle the other 2 regions and battle the rest of the gym leaders to make the maximum amount of money. But yeah, guys, that's gonna be my guide for today. Hope you guys like this video, and I really hope this is helpful. I definitely recommend watching my routine run, because there you actually get to see the team in action. If you have some questions, then definitely check it out there. You can also join our Discord server, ask some questions. Questions can also be asked in the comments down below. I'll try to answer them whenever I can, of course. And obviously there are probably a few parts I forgot, but this guide combining with the actual recordings of the runs I did should put you in the right track. And yeah, if you like this video, guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more daily PokeMMO content. And also check out my Patreon, guys, if you want to support me even more. And if you are interested in PvP, then that's definitely a good place for you to be. And yeah, with that all being said, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you next time.